So for a lot of us, going and meeting with our professional advisors, like our attorney, our CPA, our banker, insurance person, it's kind of like that feeling when I've got to be all together. I've got to know all the answers. Let me tell you something. You already are smarter than they are. Welcome to the Live Truly Free podcast.
How in the world are you going to say that I'm smarter than any of these advisors, whether it be an attorney or a CPA or a banker or insurance guy or investor? I think the whole point of them becoming experts is because they're smarter than me, at least in their field.
Right. But that's not the perspective I want you to have. You are the expert in your business. Okay. You see the whole picture and they don't. And so, see, here's what I've observed, not only with in the companies I've helped lead and then working with clients now, is there is an intimidation. Like, this is their world. I don't know this, that sort of thing. But to be a good business leader, to be a good entrepreneur leading your business, you need to understand things. And so what we want to do right now, AJ, is let's dig into this and let's get to your question and let's dig into this. Like, how does this all work? How do I have a great interaction and get the right advice and make the right decisions?
Yeah, that sounds great to me because I know that feeling that you just talked about, I know that very well. Like when I was going through the insurance process, I spent probably three times the amount of time that I needed to in the
Right.
preparation for the call with the insurance guy because I wanted to make sure I knew what was going on as much as he did at least, even though he was the expert.
So just the other day, it's time for the annual, AC check. Does the check, and then he goes, "Now you don't have to buy these things; they're accessories, but you really could use a surge protector, a hard start kit, a UV purifier, a micro air purifier. It's all this stuff, and it's hundreds and hundreds of dollars."
Yeah, UV and micro air purifiers do not sound cheap.
And you feel stupid. You feel like inadequate. You feel like I don't know what he's talking about. And then there's a part of us, especially men. Well, yes, we need that micro air purifier. And so we
Yeah.
act like we know what they're talking about when we don't have a clue.
Yeah, that reminds me, like the doctor is the perfect analogy. Like we've all heard that those types of stories where it's like an athlete who has a season ending or a career ending injury and then, they're back way sooner than anybody thought and they're playing again and they're playing at just as high of a level as they were before then. And, that initial doctor was like, "Oh yeah, it's over for you." But they were just basing that off of what they've seen in the past and didn't really know the uniqueness of that individual situation.
Yeah, that's really good. And exactly right. They don't know the willpower, the drive, the internal workings of that person, just like you're leading your company, you know? But
Yeah.
they know that typically speaking, generically speaking, this is what's going to happen. These guys are experts, they're specialists in kind of one silo of things. And you, as the business owner, as the entrepreneur, the business leader, you've got to walk circumspectly, which simply means you got to see the whole picture. You need to
Okay.
be the generalist. And in my book, The Next Level Entrepreneur, I've got a chapter, Tactics versus Strategy. And in explaining what good strategic thinking is, here's what it says. Quote, good strategic thinking is circumspect, a word derived from the Latin circumspicere, meaning to look around. Look for all the possibilities in overcoming an obstacle, then formulate your strategy. Now, this is written in the context of how to overcome obstacles, break through to your next level. It's called the Next Level Entrepreneur. So,
Yeah.
but the same thing applies to these experts because they're going to help you solve a problem.
They look at that from one lens is they kind
Right.
of you come to them, they sit in their silo over here, and then you come to them and they only kind of know that one angle of approach and looking at things where you really can see the entire picture of things when they're only approaching from one angle.
Right. You don't want any blind spots. And that's why you're going to the experts, because you don't know tax law or you
Yeah.
don't know all the tax rules where your accountant would or should. Look, they're good ones and they're bad ones out there.
Yeah.
And so I can't tell you how many times I've been in situations where the expert says, here's what you need to do. They all say that. Here's what I'm going to make the decision for you. Here's what you need to do. And you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Don't say yes.
Yeah. Do you think they kind of dictate things like that because there's like overconfident in their experience and their expertise? It's
Look,
almost like the fact that they went to school for 6 more years to study this very niche topic makes them the foremost expert on it over anybody else who comes to them. Like that they're going to have the right answer every time because they went to school for 5 more years, 6 more years, whatever it is.
well, yes. I mean, there's a certain arrogance. There needs to be a certain arrogance, a certain who's you want them. I don't want really arrogance. What I want is confidence. What I'm looking for is confidence in what their expertise is.
Okay.
And believe you me, it's a fine line. So
Yeah.
so you
Because
kind of
there's got to be some humility in the in that confidence too.
let's think about it this way, kind of like a line continuum. Okay, so let's put humility at one end and let's put cockiness at the other, and confidence is sort of the mid range. Okay,
Hmm.
so you need to, as you interact with them, you need to figure out where are they on this line. Okay, now I want them confident, but I don't want to get, let's say confidence goes to arrogance to cockiness. Okay, I don't want cockiness, and I also don't want them like super humble. Okay,
Yeah.
now you also have to keep in mind the personality that you're dealing with. Okay, so like a litigator is got a different personality than an accountant. A litigator is out there. So what that means is litigation is suing people. All
Yeah.
right. So they are attack dogs. All right. And probably that's the way to think about it, like in terms of the animal kingdom and dogs, because
Yeah.
if I want protection, I need an attack dog to go after you. All right.
Yeah.
And so that's a litigator personality. A lap dog, a lot of times the accountant's sort of the lap dog. So so you got to sort of, but what we're talking about is in the context of their expertise. And whether they're a lap dog or an attack dog, doesn't matter if they're going to have confidence in what they're doing.
Yeah.
And if they don't, if it's too much, that feels like they might be covering over inadequacies. And if it's not enough, um, you know, I here's a great example. I asked a doctor recently, but because I've been reading a lot in little fad magazine kind of stuff, about this thing called lutein, Lutein. And I
Hmm.
asked him about it. Is that something I should be interested in? It's about memory and stuff like that. And they've got supplements and blah blah. And it's the latest fad, I think.
Okay.
And his reaction sort of took me back. He was like, look, I read everything. I'm all studied up on everything. And I know a lot about gluten, but I don't know about this lutein stuff. And, and I was like, but it wasn't cocky, but it came on really strong. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and I know the guy. So I know the guy for years. So I was like, he's not a cocky guy. He's a very reasoned guy. And I'm like, fine. I'm not listening to any of this Luton stuff. By the way, I'm not giving any medical advice for you all out there. I'm just telling a story. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, is this making sense? Is this kind of
Yeah, this is making a lot of sense. And kind of like you need to go in there knowing what you're going into, in that you need to evaluate this person's kind of temperament and their cockiness. You need to really you need to evaluate the person because ultimately that person is the one giving you the advice, not just because they call themselves an expert doesn't mean that they're all knowing. They're still just a person at the end of the day. So you have to kind of evaluate that person to
right?
figure out how valuable their advice actually is going to be. It makes a lot of sense.
Now, let's talk about you, the entrepreneur, the business leader, and your approach to things. So this is a long time. Well, I've helped lead his business, and now I just advise him in a client relationship. Ay, 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 ay. Okay. So this guy is the rainmaker of his company, and he is brilliant at it. Okay. And so rainmaker means he's on the sales, marketing, the front end of the boat. Don't bother him with all the details. All right.
Mhm.
Let's talk health insurance. And so he's got his person in his company, and they're really good with all that stuff. And he didn't want to be bothered by all of the details. And they said this was a good deal for his health insurance. And so he signed it.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you what he is concerned about this detail. It's $1,500 a month, and he's stuck in it till December 31st.
For him personally?
I don't know. I've never heard of anything so insane in my life.
Oh my
I'm
God.
talking bad advice on every level. His
That's
office
a
person, his insurance thing, whatever. I don't know what went. And he, of course, has no clue. You have to engage the experts. You have to understand everything you're committing to in your company. Now, I don't want to take you out of your passion because that's what I'm really big on. That's what sustains you, and you're really good at what you do. And this guy's passion, what he loves to do is sell. And when he's in that zone, he's making it rain. Okay. And
Mhm.
it rains a lot.
But when
So
he's talking insurance, he's
he
he's
he
drowning.
he hates it. He's like, I just can't even deal with it. I just can't even deal with it. Oh, you just say health insurance. He goes, yeah. You just figure that out for me. Well, they can't, nobody can figure it out for you because
Hmm.
you know your company. And you go, and if you start asking a few questions, you bring in the expert. So here's what the expert does. The expert leverages you. So you don't need to know everything about health insurance, but your expert does need to know everything about health insurance. And what you want to know is just the piece of expertise that's going to apply to your situation.
Makes sense. And but it seems like as you were talking about in the beginning, it's not easy to do because they are intimidating. You know they are the expert. You know they know more than you. And in the case of your friend, there's just some things that you do not want to know or learn anything about. Like you just have no interest or no, there's
Right.
zero ability in you to absorb that information because it's just like painful to hear it.
This guy's really smart. If he spent 1 hour, maybe even 30 minutes, this guy is sharp. Now, with the expert, he would have cut through the crap really fast where his people can't.
Yeah.
His people can't do what he can do because they too are siloed in some little segment of the company. They're good at the contract, they're good at the agreement, they're good at making sure the deal that he wants gets done, but they're not going to see what he sees. He would take one look at this and go, well, when he knows the questions to ask after 25, 30 plus years in business, I
Yeah.
guarantee you, he's got what I help business owners get: business savvy.
How do you do this well? How do you ask those questions? Like, do you have to ask them with authority?
Absolutely. Okay, let me give an example. So at Rackspace, which is a hosting company, big tech company, and I was in the leadership and helped lead. I led strategy, and they would go from 100 million to over 800 million using the Next Level Navigator, my strategic process. So I'm deep in the company. That's my point.
Okay.
So we're in this big leadership meeting. I mean, these are all the smartest people in the company, smartest people in the room. And there's this acronym. I wish I could remember what the acronym was, and I knew what the acronym was. And so for some reason, I'm sitting there and I'm just going, what does the acronym stand for? I ask everybody in the room. Now, this is a tech company. This sounds like the dumbest question you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
Everybody
That's
knows. And they start telling me what it is. I said, no. I know what it is. But what do the letters stand for? Do you want to guess how many people in the room knew the answer to that question?
Probably none.
Zero. Now, the thing is that didn't diminish their expertise or anything like that. But what it illustrates is there's no dumb question.
Yeah.
They didn't even know. They're the smartest people in the room. They don't know. And so what you start to find out is, well, why does that happen this way? Let me get back to you on that one. I've heard that. Um, I can take accountants apart. Now, here's something, a skill I developed. I don't think you have to develop it as an entrepreneur, business leader. I don't think you have to do that. But I learned to speak bank. I learned to speak accounting. I studied that. So that was my first language was accounting
Yeah.
outside of finance. And lawyer, so there's lots of dialects. There's tax, there's corporate, there's litigation, there's oil and gas. I mean, I've dealt with tons of attorneys. Oh, international law. I mean, holy smokes. I mean, it's like there is so much out there. Okay.
Hmm.
Insurance, that's another language. It's a pretty easy one to pick up, frankly. If I was
Yes.
going to try to learn a language, I'd learn insurance first. And bank is intimidating. Because they're like, oh, they control my loan. You can't walk in there intimidated. You can't walk in there like, oh, well, I'm going to visit the doctor. I need to go do some push-ups before I go in. Well, look, it's a little late.
Yeah.
Like your insurance call. What did you go look up before your insurance call?
So he sent me like a application to look over, because we were gonna like fill it out on a call together.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went ahead and filled out the entire application before the call. And so part of that application was probably like 4 pages.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so basically anything I was
Four
researching was
pages.
just each
Wait,
line.
wait. 4 pages of what?
It was just this insurance application. It's what his company uses,
What kind of insurance were you buying?
commercial general liability. We didn't end up going with what this guy offered us, but I took a lot of time to hope to try to set it up.
Well, the reason I ask is I was mentoring a company. It was me and another gentleman. We've got separate businesses, but he and I were trying to help this guy out. And so we asked him and said, well, why aren't you start your company? I mean, everything seemed ready to go to us. It's like, what's he goes, well, I don't have insurance. We're like, what? He goes, yeah, I can't afford the insurance. So I'm trying to figure out how to get some money so I can buy the insurance so I can start the company. And we're like, well, what are you insuring?
Yeah, if your company's not running, what are you insuring?
Well, even if his company is running, what's he insuring? So this was an app and it could have liabilities with it, perhaps. And so we keep talking to him and he says, I thought I just needed to have insurance to start my business. And we go, you have nothing to insure. He goes, well, but I could be liable like you got this general liability. I go, right. Okay. So let's play that scenario out. You get sued. What's there to sue? What are you going to get?
Yeah, what can they
I mean,
take?
if you've got good corporate structure and you've not commingled personal assets, and this guy, he's a startup guy. He's in his 20s. There's nothing there. I
Yes,
mean, you could sue him all day long and you're not going to get anything. So
exactly.
nobody's going to sue him. And here's what my friend and I advised him. Well, first of all, my friend told this story. He goes, I didn't have insurance for my business till just a few years ago when I brought in these outside investor guys and they wanted some kind of insurance. What did they want insurance for? They wanted what's called E&O, executives and officer insurance, so that they were protected from any kind of lawsuits. They didn't care about the company. They cared
Yeah.
about themselves. Okay. And that's by the way, that's really smart insurance to have. They didn't have any other insurance at all. And I don't know, tens of millions of dollars in revenue, 50 million. I don't know what it was. I mean, a huge amount of revenue. Now, if you've got property, that's a different deal. Okay. But if you're leasing and stuff like that, if it's just computers, why, come on, just go buy another computer. Here's the thing. The expert, of course, told him he needed insurance because guess what the expert sells?
Insurance.
When we finished our call with him, he was like, so I don't need insurance? No, you don't need insurance. He goes, so I guess we can get started today. It's like, there's nothing keeping me from starting. We go, great, get started. Now, you have to evaluate your own situation. You have to talk to your own professionals, that sort of thing. But this is where you've got to walk with a full view of the company. He never asked the most obvious question. What do I need insurance for? Expert says you need general liability insurance. For what? You just keep asking questions and watch what happens. Just like the little kid, when you were a little kid and you kept asking mama why. Well, why is that? Why is that? Why is that? Why is that? Eventually she runs out of answers and
Yeah.
you're driving her crazy. Okay. So it's like, for what? Well, in case you get sued. What would they sue me for? Well, they'd sue you for this. And if I have no assets, if I have, and I'm a limited liability corporation and this, and this, and this, and this, what would be the worst thing? What would be the worst thing that could happen? Well, you'd have to file bankruptcy. Well, I have nothing right now. You just fold the company up. There's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
We told him this. If you have insurance, the likelihood of being sued goes up astronomically. The second they find out you have insurance, they're going for the insurance money.
Yeah.
It can almost guarantee you a lawsuit.
Yeah, because
You
if you're a
don't
startup
have
with no insurance, why would they pay their lawyers to go after the nothing that you have?
Right. And if it's a contingency case, which means they only get what they win, they're not going to go after it. You're not going to get, in other words, you're not going to get a contingency lawyer. The first thing the contingency lawyer says is, well, how much money do they have? Well, they don't, but they've got $1 million insurance policy. We found that out. And you don't have to disclose that, by the way. I mean, that's like they tricked them into saying it.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of giving this little example here to just show not whether you should have insurance or not. That's not the point of this. The point of this is if you start asking your experts honest questions, common sense from the business owner's perspective. What do I need this for? So I'm going to pay how much a month or how much a year? What do I get for that? Because you are evaluating how much was the insurance that you were talking about getting?
We ended up getting a quote for $5,000.
$5,000. As the business owner, you're thinking about all the other things you could buy for that same $5,000. If I'm going to spend $5,000 on insurance, well, I could buy 2 computers. I could buy this. I could buy that. I could have my field people with handheld devices that they could make the sale, collect it all in one swipe. That's going to make me some money. The $5,000, I get nothing for it except some promise that I'm insured. You start asking questions and you start hearing the answers, and they're giving you the expert answers, by the way. You're like, gee, I don't know if this makes sense right now.
Yeah.
Go back to my AC guy. I was like, one of those, the startup kit actually made sense, but my unit's fine right now. It's basically brand new, 3 years old. And so it's like, but that's good to know about because I might want to buy one in the next 12 months. But I'm not going to buy one right now.
Yeah.
I don't need to. That's what you do. You take the expert information, you're confident, and your business.
Yeah. So while they're the expert in whatever area you're going to them for, you still have to keep in mind that you're the expert on your business and they have no authority over your business while you have authority over your business. So you kind of just go to them for their opinion, and then you take that opinion and you use that opinion for what you think is best for your company based on your expert analysis of your company.
You're right. You just said something very important there, AJ. They don't have authority over your business unless you give it to them. So all of this is really captured brilliantly in an analogy kind of way in the movie The King's Speech, which we're going to put a link to a clip that I think you're really going to love. But the gist of it is King George VI is being coronated. That's the father to Queen Elizabeth. And in this clip, they're practicing for the coronation. And the Archbishop comes in and interrupts the king and Lionel Logue. Logue is helping the king with his stammer. And nobody's been able to really have any success except Lionel Logue, who has no credentials. And the Archbishop comes in and he says, Mr. Logue, your services are no longer required. We found an English specialist with impeccable credentials. And the king is like, what are you talking about? I'm sorry. What are you talking about? And the Archbishop says, Your Majesty's function is to consult and be advised. You didn't consult, but you've just been advised. All right. This is classic expert to the cocky side of our line. And he's talking to the king of the empire. But he's putting himself over it. And the king in this exchange will reassert his authority, just like you have to do. So you want your experts, but you need to keep your experts advising you, but not telling you what to do. You make the call. You make the decision. And you can have multiple experts, that sort of thing. I will tell you this, the scene ends with the Archbishop saying, Your humble servant. He finds his place and he gets into it. And he goes, because he knows he's done. And in other words, his advice, his expert advice was rejected. That's going to happen. And you got to get that kind of confidence where you can say, you know what? I'm not buying your insurance. I don't need general liability right now, but thank you so much. I'll keep you in mind for when I do need it.
That's actually a great illustration of it. And now that we've kind of talked about how to interact with these experts, and get over that feeling of like anxiousness that they know more than you, I think we should probably take it back to the beginning and ask, how do you meet and pick one of these guys in the first place?
That's a great question. We're probably running a little long here on the podcast. I'm losing track of time. But tell you what, let's do that in our next podcast. I know we're going to get into some of the details of how do you figure out a good CPA, attorney, banker, insurance person, all that kind of stuff. So in the meantime, may you live truly free.